Great. Good morning. Sounds better. Yeah. Okay. Good morning. I think this is feeling like a family reunion of sorts. So this is very exciting. I'm Marian. You all know me. This is Carolyn Beer, who's on my team. We're going to be talking about curriculum maps and our little journey in the last 6 month-ish to help our academic units, help their students visualize their degree paths. Do you mind advancing a little bit? Roughly our agenda, this is very low-key and open to Q&A. Yeah, the arrow should work if you want to try that. All right, a little context, what discovery we did, how we implemented it technically, how we rolled it out, and lessons we learned along the way.
All right, so a little bit of background and context into how we got here. So Marian and I have been working for the past year and a half or so on making sure that all of the documents, spreadsheets, PDFs, just everything that's linked from any of our websites is fully accessible. And we've been chipping away unit by unit, and we've noticed that the units that grant degrees have some sort of visualization, some sort of flow chart or some diagram of how students might work through their academic requirements. And everything that we saw was inaccessible. So there were a lot of use cases in what we saw. There were some majors that have multiple different concentrations. So they had different flow charts for how you might do one concentration over another. Some units have a BA and a BS option for their major. So there are comparisons of how you would do either of those, how you might progress through your 5 to 6 year PhD program, or complete an undergrad honors program, and even some with faculty advising. And so here are some examples of what we were working with. So this unit has kind of just a general, here are 5 buckets of classes that you take, and you kind of just work through them over the course of 1 to 3 years per bucket. This one, the unit has 6 different ways that you can progress through the master's program, depending on the amount of second or third language that you come in with. And for them, it was very important that this remain color-coded. And it was also critical that units be included, because you can see the language requirement has different units depending on the different situation. This unit has about 8 different ways that you can complete the major. So they have one big spreadsheet with a bunch of tabs. Next one. And then this one is a very stylized guide on how you might complete any of the different concentrations within the major. So all students take all the red courses, and then they have to identify which concentration they're taking, figure out what color that is, and then follow that color to complete their courses. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of different visual guides, and none of them were accessible. So we were racking our brains trying to figure out how to make accessible versions of these. And as you can see, all of them were different. So there didn't seem to be one solution. And then Marian and I went to DigiCol 2025. And the University of Chicago Social Work School had a solution. So we looked at what they offered. They contracted a vendor to create this on their platform. And you can see that it's divided into columns for different quarters. It's color-coded by requirement type. So there's core courses, social administration courses, electives, and fields. And you can also see that there are links, presumably to the course catalog, to describe these courses. And so we thought, surely we can do this on our platform. And I'll let Marian explain how we did that.
Thanks. So we thought surely we can do this exactly. We looked at the range of existing student aids. We looked at undergrad and grad needs. We looked at different clusters. So does this work just for the humanities or does it work for the sciences? And then we try to figure out how could we architect this on our platform in a way that would meet the needs of the various units. And we also, one of the biggest conversations we had internally was, is this essentially manual content that goes into these buckets of course and course requirements, or is this automatically feeding in or tied to the course catalog? I mean, the good news is we figured out one solution could serve the needs of all of our units, at least 95% of the needs of our units, which was a nice surprise. So we're just going to show you how we did this. This is the messy middle, right? Where you start drafting what fields do we need? How much of a priority is it? What is the type of, what is the field type that we need? What are the values? How many values do we need? So essentially we needed to be able to identify families of course requirements that correspond to the color-coded tags that we saw a minute ago. We needed to be able to identify, to label the courses or course families that go in there, organize them by quarter within an academic year, have some flexibility if there's a summer quarter or not. The color coding was important to some of our units. Linking to the course catalog was important to some of our units. And then some of them had things that we didn't know how important they were, and we figured maybe that's not MVP. And that was all of the unit numbers, calculations, all of the footnotes, all of the sort of year-long things that was augmenting the content, but maybe not super core to the content. We are on a shared Drupal architecture. So we build this as a paragraph, as a component. We have a library of components. Most of our components library has been super stable. I think it's been a year, 18 months since we built a brand new component. And most of our components are very general component. It's going to be a text area or a postcard or an accordion, not usually the super structured, a ton of fields for our type of components. But we added this new component onto our component library. So when our editors are building a flexible page, they can choose that, place it anywhere on their flexible pages, and go from there. And it's a nested structure. So the first thing they do is they add a year. Within the year, they start adding quarters. Within the quarter, they start adding course or requirement types. And then they color code them, and then they fill it in. It's a lot of information to present on the page, so the editing interface can be quite lengthy, so we try to ease their burden whenever possible. So it always starts by default. The first year is going to be labeled year one, right? Because most of the time that's what they're going to do. And the first quarter is going to be labeled fall quarter or autumn, because that's always where it starts by default. They can change that, but the defaults are trying to make their lives a little bit easier. The colorful tags really help visualize, how do I do all of my language requirements over the years? How do I do all of my electives over the years? So that's been really appreciated. And of course, with the colorful tags, we had to make sure accessibility and color contrast was working. The other thing is we had to build in flexibility. HNS is such a big school. You have everything from the nursery to the PhDs, right? So you needed to be able to find a way. Some people label the first year as year one, and some call it fresh year, and some people call it freshman year, right? So all of those flexibilities had to be built in, summer or not summer. And then the information that goes inside each box, each course requirement box, had to be either a single course, linked or not, or maybe 2 or 3 courses, or maybe a little description that says this is the part where you work on your thesis, or this is the part where you prepare your qualifiers. This is the editing interface. I mean, it's exactly at the nesting structure. At the top of the page, you're creating a flexible page. You're choosing in your main region a component called a curriculum map. Within that, you're giving it a title. The first layer underneath that is an academic year. By default, it's going to be labeled year one. The first layer under that is a quarter. By default, it's labeled autumn. Underneath of that, you're going to start filling in your courses or requirements, and then you select a tag for your requirement type, and then you enter in the content that goes into that box, and then you add as many of those as you need to build your page. This is what it looks like for something that's already been filled in. So this is a sample progression for PhD students. Their year one, typical funding, fellowship for 3 quarters. In autumn, they have to take 18 units of this, pro seminar 1, 201, language exams, English placement test, etc. So we're able to help them visualize, even in the editing interface, the different course requirements and tags that they have. The page is longer than this. We just didn't think we could see it if we showed all of it. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Carolyn.
Right. So adoption and impact. We created a variety of curriculum maps for different units to try and see if this would be something that they could adopt. And as we've mentioned, it's very flexible. So we did different things for different units. So here's an example of 2 different tracks within the same major. As you can see, all of the different cards are course requirements. So just different types of courses, a core course, a track requirement, an elective, a capstone, and they have links. So they go to the specific course description in Navigator. Some of them you can see they say, take this class or take this class, or maybe it's more general, just generally take an English elective, or somewhat general, like take one pre-1800s course. Then for the PhD path, they did not need different course types. They wanted to go more general than that. So this one includes one of the requirement types as a unit count so that students can see how many units they should register for. Any required courses are under a single tag, and then there's separate degree requirements, milestones, and key events by quarter. There's also one summer quarter, they have degree requirements, then they've listed out different requirements for the different subspecialties of that PhD program. This is an example for an honors program. It shows the progression of getting the bachelor's degree and then interweaves the honors requirements starting in winter of junior year. So students can see when they need to start thinking about that. And lastly, we had a one-off use case where there was a faculty advising spreadsheet where faculty advisors are expected to do certain things in different quarters throughout the year with their advisees. So they're supposed to schedule meetings, send certain emails, and host different events or classes. So we were able to make this into a curriculum map that can go onto the faculty intranet. The impact. So first and foremost, this is fully accessible. You can use it with a screen reader or keyboard navigation. It has semantic HTML structure. And then just in general, it benefits all students regardless of disability status. So it's very readable. It's also findable instead of being hidden behind a PDF somewhere on some random page. It's now something that can be searched because it's direct web content. It's also incredibly time saving. I can't count the hours that I spent trying to remediate some of those other solutions. And then anytime there was a change, they would have to be redone. Whereas with a curriculum map, depending on how complicated it is, you could create one in 10 to 15 minutes. It's also consistent across all of the units. So for example, if a student was trying to compare 2 different majors, they could look at the 2 different curriculum maps and they would have kind of a standard idea of what each one looks like. It's also consistent within academic units. A lot of departments have an undergrad SSO and a different person who does grad student services. So it's consistent even within departments. And so far, everyone that we have approached about this has been super excited about it.
I think that was the biggest surprise for me was that every single unit we talked to, regardless of whether we were talking to the student service officer or the department academic head, said, yeah, we want this. When can we have it? Let's start building it. Let's start building it for our undergrad, for our concentrations, for our grads, for various things. This doesn't happen, right? We don't build a component and everybody says we want it and we want it now. Um, and oftentimes what we've done is we've built the first one for them and then sort of held their hands as they understood the interface and then took it from there. So that was super exciting. I think when you build something and people love it and people start taking it and then they take it to places that you didn't expect, where they're adding unit information, advising information, that's been kind of a delight. We don't often step into content design quite to that degree. We usually really give fairly broad stroke tools and then let our units do their content. And really, that's usually the line we draw. But this is making me rethink some of that. Sometimes we see an opportunity, they're not necessarily able to articulate it, but we see it and we're able to assist them and really take some of the barriers away. The team has a long running joke about the need for flexibility and consistency, right? This is just a perfect example of it. We needed to be able to find a single option that had enough flexibility to make it work, which is just a very interesting fine line we're going after. A couple of challenges we encountered. The first one is we needed to make sure that legally these are not bulletin requirements, right? Bulletin requirements have a very special place in an academic institution, and academic units are held by those. We needed to make sure this was clearly labeled as sample paths. This is one possible journey to your major, minor, honor, PhD, whatever it is. We're just helping you visualize. These are not your requirements. Your requirements live on the bulletin. This is supplementary, helpful information from an advising perspective. And then for a school that has 50 different academic degree granting units, there's always a nice challenge to think extra creatively and outside the box for whatever the unit's particular needs are, whether it's counting unit counts across the quarter, having ranges of unit counts, taking this to more of a faculty advising calendar information. So we know what it can do well. And every other time we're meeting with the unit, they say, well, what about this other thing? And we have to sort of pause and say, well, give us some time to think about this, and then let's find a solution to make it work. We are growing this a little bit more, adding some flexibility and functionality. One of the things we've added is the ability to duplicate quarters or years or course requirements, just a lot of information that needs to be filled in. So if you don't have to type all of it from scratch, that's pretty handy. We've added uniform height, which is making all the boxes line up, so it doesn't look quite as jagged. Sometimes that's helpful for our units. Adding the ability to have bulleted and numbered lists inside the boxes and not just text. And then expanding the help text to help them navigate the editing interface really easily. Things we're looking at potentially for the future: unit counts, some bands that could cut across an entire year to sort of have those footnotes for in your junior year, think about this, and then prepare for that don't sit within a particular quarter. And similarly, notes fields. The other thing we're thinking about is we now have a system for tagging requirement types or things like this that is meeting color contrast needs, regardless of the color palette that the site is on. And there's a bunch of other places where our units want color as a way to help students navigate content and really grasp families of things. So should we take that color tagging system into other parts of the platform and help visualize research areas for faculty or event types or other things like that? That's it. That is the presentation. If we have questions, now's a great time. And if not, we will dance or do a demo or whatever, whatever is going to fill the time, or just let you all have a cup of coffee. Do you know if there's questions in the chat? No. All right. Thank you. How are we doing on time? We're good. All right. Question. Great. Another cup of coffee.
Have you shown this to people outside HNS?
We have, I mean, yes, today. As of today, we have. We have mentioned this to Stanford Web Services because we think this is relevant, obviously beyond HNS. And so if they're interested, we're happy to share our data structures that can be used in either the Stanford Web Services tool or other schools platforms. But yeah, it's been kind of a quick adoption that's kept us fairly busy. So we haven't paused to do a roadshow until this morning. All right. Well, thank you.